Excellent. Right, I just did this video and I spent about 16 minutes doing it and the microphone wasn't on. Hooray! So we're going to do it all over again. Wonderful. So this is my video about my favorite OSR style games. Now I've already done a video about this about a year ago, but I'm going to amalgamate the styles because before it was OSR games and then OSR style games. So I was mixing things like Shadow Dark in with and Castles and Crusades in with actual well, just by themselves, and then OSR games just by themselves. This is a mix of both. So this is going to be actual OSR games and games that you could say are sort of OSR-ish or inspired by the style. So to begin with, and straight off at the back, what I will always recommend to people for a real basic game, OSR style game, is Basic Fantasy RPG by Chris Goneman. This game costs you about £3. Well, not £3. Well, the PDF is free. This book, the softcover book, would be about in the UK about £5, something like that for the softcover book. It is everything you could want in an OSR game. It has a bit of a newer style, so it's higher rolling. It's all D20 roll high. You don't get too many other sorts of rolls in it, though it does have thief percentile table for chances to do thief things. But it's basic fantasy in a nutshell. It is an entire game in this tome. The hardback is a little bit more, but in this tome is everything you need to play an OSR themed style game, and the modules for it. There's so many modules, and the modules are really cheap in free PDFs, or you can get them really cheap. And even if you don't like this game, there are so many modules that you can use for it, and adventures and settings that even if you don't like the system, look up the settings for it and the modules for it. It's brilliant, and it's a good game. So I'm going to off the bat recommend that. Now, if that isn't your cup of tea and you want something a little bit more OSR style, then you can't go wrong with actual OSR game, which is, well, not OSR game, the one of the daddies of them, the D&D rule cyclopedia. About £10 on PDF on Drive-Thru RPG. The print-off book, I think this cost me about £20 at the time. I know the prices might be going up on Drive-Thru RPG. But this is TSR. I mean, this is what the OSR was used to recreate rules like this. Look at this. This has got everything from the basic expert, companion, master, some bits from the immortal, but not everything. Game. It's got the tables that you need. It's basic D&D. This is 1980s D&D in a nutshell, and I love this book, and I love it. It's got skills that were introduced into it as well. It's got chapters on all sorts, like other character abilities. So there's where we're going into skills. It's got all the tables you need. Like this is when skills were first. One of the first uses of skills was introduced in this game. It's got chapters on mass combat, normal combat, encounters, and evasion. It's got like a mini monster manual at the end of it. You know, it's wonderful, and it's basically if you want to play D&D, and you, this is it. You can't go wrong with this. And like I said, the PDF, you're going to have to pay some money for it, but even the PDF is cheap as chips. What is that in dollars? It's not a lot of money. Now, if something else is a bit more of your style and you like the BX, and instead of just buying BX, I'd actually go for Old School Essentials, which I think is a bloody marvelous game. Look at this, my cat, my flipping cat. Anyway, this game is, look at it basically. Look how well set out it is. The tables in the front, tables that you need in the back, just so for ease of reference. It talks about compatibility with the basic expert rules, and this says compatible with the 1981 edition of the world. So the BX version. So I presume that's talking about the Moldvay version. I presume. Anyway, I love the art in this. It's got some lovely bits of art in it. It has high attack roll. It does talk about Thaco. It does have ascending or descending armor class options in it. It has multiple classes. So I've got the advanced version. There is a more basic version which you can purchase as well, which has less classes, and it doesn't have the advanced options. You don't have to use the advanced options in the advanced version if you don't like. But look at how this is set out. It's really easily set out. It is an OSR game. Nobody's added anything to it, but they've made it so much more simple. They have really made this so much more simple and easily accessible. So if you were going to try a true OSR style game, a real true recreation of BX. Instead of basic fantasy, this is wonderful. It's expensive. It is more money, which is why I'm annoyed about the book and the cat eating the ribbon of it. Because if the completionist in me wants to buy another one, but whereas I'd be happier to buy another player's tome to go around the table, I don't need another referee's tome. But the cat's eating it. I'll be billing my wife. Turcat. Anyway, brilliant, brilliant, and it's just the artwork in it is lovely. Like I said, again, it's got tables in that you could use instead of even a DM screen if you didn't need. This game, I just cannot recommend highly enough as an OSR, actual proper good OSR game. I think this is probably, for me, one of the highest production value in an OSR game that I have seen. It is wonderful. These books are wonderful, man. Absolutely wonderful. Next up, if you want something a bit more old school, is not the production value, I'll be honest, aren't the same, but Swords and Wizardry for that 1974 feel of Dungeons and Dragons. This is the 70s version of the game, I feel, as opposed to the more 1980s version of the game. There's not huge differences about how the bonuses to ability scores are a bit different, and the percentile chances of characters are a bit different. But it's a lovely game again, a brilliant game again, and I'd love to. I haven't actually run this, and I would like to run it, but I've got so many things to run that every time I host a game with my group, I'll be using a different system, which I am tempted to do because I'm on a quest to make my group play every iteration of D&D and taste them all, so that they get a taste of it as well. But anyway, this game is, again, nicely self-contained. It's got the monsters you need in it. It's got all the critters. It's got rules for all the different classes, as many other OSR games. It's by Matt Finch, the guy who wrote the old school primer, which is a really great bit of resource on how people who are coming from newer style games should look to approach older style OSR gaming, and rulings versus rules, that type of thing. And it's a really good free download. So the old school primer, I would recommend having a look at if you never have before. But this is the game written by the guy who did the old school primer. Now, this isn't that cheap. Actually, this book cost me around £30, which I'm not quite sure was worth exactly £30. It's a bit steep for what it is compared to like the old school essentials, which I can get for a similar price. The basic old school essentials, not the 2 advanced books that I've got, but the basic by itself is self-contained, and I could have gotten that. Anyway, next up, if we're going a bit more modern now, this Castles and Crusades Player's Handbook. This is OSR style. I mean, it's not OSR because OSR's got, we're talking about THACO or things like that. But this is the spiritual successor to Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. It really is. This is, a lot of people would say this is what Advanced Dungeons and Dragons would have turned into if Gary Gygax had to recreate it, and he was involved with the company Troll Lord Games in writing some bits for them around the time of his death, actually. And I know Troll Lord Games have connections with the Gygax family, good connections, solid connections, and this is seen as the spiritual successor. It's really got the feel of Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. Whilst I read it, the how it's written, the way the character classes are, the spell selection, and how it comes across. It's got that older feel with, as I said this, but with that newer twist to it. And I would highly recommend Castles and I don't get why it's not actually more popular. Like I said, I've talked about Shadow Dark before. Shadow Dark, people claim like Shadow Dark has that old feel but with a newer twist. I mean, I know this is made in about the 2000s, but this was doing it before it was a thing. This has got the old feel with the newer twist. Obviously, it's not quite as basic as what Shadow Dark is, and that is some of the appeal of Shadow Dark. But this is doing that way before, and it's a great game. It's a great game, and I don't get why this is not more popular. For me, this should be popular, and you can get last I checked, you can get a PDF of this for free off the Troll Lord Games website. So fill your boots. What doesn't hurt you to download it for free and have a look at at the rules, see if it's good for you or if it's not. But I'd highly recommend. I don't get why this actually isn't more popular than it is, and I've never gotten that. But we're all different. We all like different things, and that's life. Talking of Shadow Dark, again, I have made a video, my last video was a bit critical of why this is so popular. But again, as I said, it is a good basic game. It is basic 5th edition D&D is what this is. And you can't say much more about it than that. It's basic 5th edition with some changes. It's got a torch timer. It's got a great thing for the inventory is fine. How it manages the inventory system is great. It's a fine game. And if you were going to get people from 5th edition wanting to get used to that style of OSR, this is a good place to go with them. You know, they're still playing sort of the more modern updated rule system that they're used to, but you're getting some of that feel of OSR. This isn't OSR, of course, but it's in the vein of it. It's in the style of it. That's what it wants to be. And it does a good job of it. Again, but as I pertain to, it's not reinvented the wheel, which some people seem to feel it has, and I don't get that. But again, we all like different things, and this is a solid game. It's not a bad game at all. So this is a good one, and you know, this is I played some with my kids, and they enjoyed it. So brilliant. So next up is, well, as a quick interlude, are you going to a gaming convention or the gaming store? You want to play a quick game of impromptu role play? White box medieval fantasy. There's different covers of this, but this is a cheaper version, you could say, of Swords and Wizardry, because it's literally a whole game system in about 130 page book, a little bit more than 130 page, but it's got monsters, it's got spells, it's got character creation, it's got everything in this little book. I mean, if you want to just pop round to someone's, you pop round your friend. Oh, I didn't realise a little bit of muck there. If you want to pop round somebody's house and you just want to play a little bit of a game with somebody, I mean, this is a quick gaming. This is like quick gaming. It's excellent, and this cost me about £4, £3. It's so cheap. It's so cheap. I mean, again, is this the best OSR game in the world? No, it's not, and it is based sort of on the older rules and everything. But look, you can't go wrong. You can't go wrong. It's about a £4, £4 book, whatever it is, and the PDF I think is free of it. Knock yourself out. You're not losing anything. You know what was for the price of a burger? Why not? Why not? Last but not least, I've talked about this before. This is my favourite sort of OSR style game, which comes into the newer sort of is a bit newer. I mean, this was made about 12 years ago now. But this is Dungeon Crawl Classics. And look at the artwork on this. If you just like looking through books for the artwork, to me, this is like old school essentials to me. It's got lovely art. A lot of it is black and white pencil drawn. But this has got some wonderful art in it. And I could just come through this just to look at that. There's nearly art on apart from the spell pages, there's art on nearly every other page. And it's a wonderful game, and I said this is doing what to me a very similar feel to Shadow Dark. Not as basic, no, not as basic, but it's very similar feel to what Shadow Dark was doing. Though Shadow Dark seems to have got this praise for bringing that old school vibe back with a new school twist. Well, this was doing this 12 years ago, and I don't get why this isn't quite as popular as it is. Goodman Games, once a month, go on their events page. They host free sessions, so you can learn this for free. One of their judges hosts it for free once a month. Have a look. It's an Eastern Standard Time that they host it, but you can learn this game for free. And it's a wonderful little game. So why not? And they've got great customer engagement. Again, this has naught level like Shadow Dark does, and it starts people off at naught level. It's a bit more complicated. The spells all similar, like I said before, similar to Shadow Dark, in that you roll a dice. And you don't lose the spells. You don't have spell slots. You lose spells if you roll too low. Things like that. But it's just a brilliant game. And every class gets something special to do. And you get these different... Again, it evokes a feel of like when you first discovered role-playing. Because this uses different... Like they've got a 30-sided dice there. This is a 24-sided dice as well as a 12. And it uses a 3-sided dice. And this is a 5-sided dice. It uses the Zocchi dice, I think they call them. And you can get them quite cheap, actually, basic ones off Amazon. You can get these quite cheap. And Roll20 actually has a page for this so that you can use the odd-shaped dice. And instead of advantage, disadvantage, you change the dice size, basically, in a nutshell, in this. And it's just... This is my favourite at the moment. And I know, you get flavours of the month. But at the moment, this is my flavour of the month, and I think it'll be more than a flavour of the month. I just love it. It's got a lot of scope for growth and for you to really make your character become better and better and better. It's got a lot of scope for growth and a campaign in it, and I like it. And I just highly recommend this to anybody that is looking to play a game. Again, you can get the hardcover is a bit more expensive. You can get the softback for £20. I don't know what that is in the US, but that's quite cheap. £20, and you get a free PDF of the book. I'm being a bit of a salesperson for this, so I'm going to try not to. But at the moment, this is my favorite new style OSR sort of adventure. And also, one last thing, I've had people say that this is not true OSR. Well, OSR style. It is OSR style, definitely. I mean, this is based on Appendix N and the reinvoking of looks. The person who made it, Mr. Goodman, he went through Appendix N, which is what inspired Gary Gygax and what inspired D&D. It wasn't just Lord of the Rings, it was Appendix N. Look up Appendix N and the books in it. That inspired Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. Gary Gygax wrote about Appendix N at the end of the Advanced Dungeons and Dragons original Dungeon Master's Guide. And so Goodman Games went over that again and then recreated like what you could say would be a modern version of what AD&D might be like nowadays. So this, so if the OSR was inspired by Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, and Advanced Dungeons and Dragons was inspired by Appendix N, then this at its core has to be an OSR inspired game, which to me it is. But it's got much better, more refined mechanics. Well, I say much better. Mechanics are subjective to what is better, but it's got that newer feel, which again to me is doing what Shadow Dark done 12 years before Shadow Dark was made. But hey, I seem to have a bug to bear about. And like again, I've said, I like Shadow Dark. I just don't think it's doing anything new that everything else wasn't doing. But it does simplify rules. You've got to give it that. Anyway, that's the end of my video. Take care. Thank you for listening. Ooh, 17 minutes, going on a bit long. I hope I've retained your attention. Take care. All the best. And until next time, keep on gaming. Much love.